good undercard. Um, and of course, the main event did not live up to that momentum that those younger guys kind of set the tone for at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, no, again, it was a good card. It was the appetizers, man. Kept people busy, kept people tuned in, and like you said, Gio, that it was a bit of a downer for main event. They chose to move this fight to a Thursday, try to capitalize on the Super Bowl weekend. It fell flat. Obviously the opening was great. Uh, I have to say, when I saw Teofimo coming out with a bunch of the whole theatrics coming in, that's when I started getting the feeling like I feel like something's not gonna go his way, and that's only because I feel sometimes when a fighter over hypes or overdoes it, sometimes I feel like they something's gonna happen. So I felt that moment in the beginning, that something like that was gonna happen. You saw an Ortiz very humble, no theatrics, came here to do his business, had a game plan, stuck to it. Wasn't the most fan friendly fight plan, but it gave him success and it frustrated them. So tell me your thoughts on that, Gio.
Yeah, so what you guys were looking at your screen was Keyshawn Davis' resume. As you've seen, not much there, so I'm not sure why he's calling out guys and asking for title shots. If you see nothing there other than Pedraza, the only real name that we recognize. So, yeah, man, these guys are trying to learn how to fly before they learn how to run. It's crazy, but uh, no handouts, as Teofimo said. If you want a title shot, go get a title yourself. But yeah, talking about Teofimo, obviously he talks a lot. Like I said last week, a lot of times I'm confused with the stuff that he says. A lot of times he doesn't make sense. You saw the post-fight interview. He was talking about random stuff, but anytime I think anyone talks as much as a guy like Teofimo does or his father, you know, I feel like they open themselves to more criticism. We've met Teofimo in person, great guy. You know, I think the persona in front of the cameras is a different guy. I'm not sure if he's doing it for attention or if he's trying that hard to be the quote unquote showman. But to me, prove it in the ring first. If you look at all those guys who do a lot of talking, a lot of those guys like Prince Nassim Hamed, they were able to back it up with their skills. Teofimo seems like he fights to the level of his opponent, and that's why I think we were a bit concerned. Jamaine Ortiz is not Lomachenko. Jamaine Ortiz is not Josh Taylor. We saw what Teofimo did or didn't do against George Kambosos, right? He didn't perform well at all. So a lot of times he fights to the level of his opponent. I think this is another example. Jamaine made it tough for him. He moved around a lot. Sometimes he literally just backpedaled. But look, as I said earlier, Teofimo didn't know how to cut the ring off. And, I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone, but man, get a real trainer. Get a real trainer. At this level, no disrespect, but his father is not a real trainer. All right. If he was a real trainer, he would be training other fighters. I don't see anyone saying, oh man, I want Teofimo Lopez Sr. to train me. I don't see anyone calling his phone. I don't see any champions looking for his services. So he has to get a real trainer. It's that simple. You can't just go out there and rely on athleticism, rely on your speed, rely on your power, and have zero strategy. He's been able to get away with it so far, except for that Cambosos fight. But yeah, that would be one of my bigger takeaways. There's a lot to unpack here, a lot to unfold, but I think we can get that part out of the way. Do you guys agree in the chat? Do any of you think that he should be trained by his father? I'm not a big fan of the father-son duos, especially when they don't have any real boxing experience. I could be wrong, but hey, man, this is high-level boxing. It's only going to get tougher from here. He already has one loss. So if he wants to beat the top dogs, I think he needs a real trainer.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that Teofimo truly does fight to the level of his opponents. When he fought Cambosos, that seemed like not much of a threat, from people, putting money down on that fight. We saw what happened with Cambosos upsetting him when he fought Josh Taylor, people thought Josh Taylor probably was going to be too much for Teofimo, and based on past performances by Teo, he stepped up to that. He looked sensational. This fight, again, it's a guy that people were kind of, or people thought that Teo should have handled quite easily, and you saw what kind of fight we got. So yeah, that's a great point to make out, Gio. Again, we do know Teo is a good fighter, but at the elite level, at those levels, you got to be able to adapt, and that's something that we saw in this fight. Like you mentioned earlier, he was not able to cut up the ring. And when you think of fighters that cut up the ring, the triple G's, those kinds of guys, that's sound foundation, that's basics. And again, sometimes we don't see that because Teofimo ends the fight with a knockout. He ends the fight on his terms. We don't get to see that, but he was a little exposed this fight, and so I completely agree with certain fights when you get to that level, and if you still have your pops or a childhood trainer, that's where you have to make the decision that's best for your career, whether it's to hire a world-class trainer like a Robert Garcia or, some of these other world-class trainers. That's where you have to make that tough decision, or else your career is going to stale up. So I think you make a great point with that. I think Dale does need to move on and get him some world-class training.